Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to another episode of the Weekend Crusaders. My name's Sean Wasserkrug. With me, as always, is Brian Michaels. It's the Halloween episode. We totally should have wore costumes.
No. It is. Actually, I'm Sean Wasserkrug, dressed up as Brian Michaels.
I knew if I went to Brian, I was like, Brian, we should costume up. And that was the exact answer I knew we'd get. So there was no point of even bringing it up. But it is the technically Halloween episode, because we were talking about movies that got released during the week of Halloween. We got a decent slate here. Some good movies, some overrated movies, in my opinion. And then we got a stinker that is befuddled Brian and I. We were legitimately befuddled is the word I'm going to use going into this film. But before I start, what are your thoughts on the 5 films this week?
It's kind of a nice way to transition out of the Halloween season. We got, a couple Halloween, a couple of kind of not Halloween, but it's, for the most part, actually, I actually like most of the movies except for that stinker. But
yeah. Well, anyway, we are going to be moving on to, or starting with, our revisited film. This revisited film is considered a classic. I don't agree with that, or at least I said that last week. I didn't agree with that. We were going to see if me rewatching this was going to change my mind. We are talking about the Tim Burton holiday classic, Nightmare Before Christmas. The Nightmare Before Christmas came out October 29th, 1993, had a budget of $24 million, had a weekend opening of $8.21 million, made $8.28 million in limited releases. It was number one its opening weekend and spent 2 weeks at the number one spot, and had a finished box office of $91.49 million, $77.36 million domestic, and $14.12 million international. For me, and a lot of people were wondering that for most of my life, there's been a lot of movies where are considered classics. They're like, Sean, how have you never watched that movie? Or Sean, how do you not like that movie? And this is one of them. I've gotten a lot of, especially people around my age, a lot of backlash for me not being a fan of the Nightmare Before Christmas. And the reason why is I'm just not a fan of stop motion. Like, credit the people who make them, because it's a bitch making stop motion films. Like, I've seen them. Like, them having to go like, move, stop, move, stop. Move. Like, I don't have the patience for that. I just have never liked films that do that. Like, I don't know. Just like I think Isle of Dogs and Kobo and Kobo and the 3 strings?
Kubo and the 2 strings.
2 strings.
Those Paranorman is also good. I would check that one out.
What's that?
Paranorman, if you haven't seen that one, is very good.
Everyone brings up Paranorman. But like Paranorman, Frankenweenie, James and the Giant Peach, like they bring up all that crap. Kubo and Isle of Dogs are like the only 2 that I actually liked, but I've never been a fan of stop motion. So going back to Nightmare, this was one of those. It's like, oh my god, they beat everyone over their head with this film. That it's like one of the best films ever made. So I was hoping by rewatching this that maybe I would see that. Maybe I would change my mind. Maybe I would understand why it's so crazy the way it is. But before I go into my thoughts on whether or not rewatching this did that, let's go to Brian first. Brian, what are your thoughts on Nightmare Before Christmas?
So Nightmare Before Christmas is a weird one. It came out in 93, which this was like Disney's like fall offering for that year, which they went from like Beauty and the Beast in 91, Aladdin 92 to this in 93, and then back to like Lion King and Pocahontas after that. So this is like the weird one that Disney put out. And it didn't actually do that well. I mean, even reception, it made a little bit of money, but people didn't love it at the time. It was not considered a classic. I worked at a store. We sold tons of Nightmare Before Christmas merchandise, which sat on the shelves until it went clearance, basically. And I wish now I had bought it all up, because now it's all worth a ton of money. Because what happened is in the years since then, it like got co-opted by Hot Topic, basically. That whole crowd.
Yeah.
The whole goth crowd decided this is our Christmas movie and our Halloween movie, because it makes us edgy and because it's like horror version of Christmas. And so they put out all kinds of merchandise, and it got over marketed, and now it's on everything everywhere. And people grew to love this movie kind of as like an anti-Christmas movie. And there's a whole argument of whether it's Christmas or Halloween, when it really it's both, whatever it is.
It is both.
But I actually enjoy the movie. I think it's a good, fun movie. I think it is one of the most overrated movies around, because even though I like it and I think it's good, it gets seriously overpraised. I agree. I'm not a huge fan of stop motion animation. There are ones that I like. Like I said, Paranorman, Kubo, this. There's actually a few of them that I like. But honestly, I'd probably like them even more if they were done in regular animation, is the truth. But I still enjoy the stories and things like that. So it's not my favorite style of animation. Although, again, like you, I do respect the people who do this craft because it takes a lot. This is also the movie that everyone thinks is a Tim Burton movie. It's not. It's directed by Henry Selick. Tim Burton basically kind of came up with the characters and a basic story, and then that was about all he had to do with it besides collecting the paycheck. But it's fun. I mean, the songs, I enjoy most of them. There are a couple that kind of drag. The voice cast, I think, is excellent. I mean, Catherine O'Hara and Paul Rubens and what's his name, Chris Sarandon as Jack. It's actually a fun movie. It is enjoyable to kind of watch. It is something you can watch like with the family at Halloween. As far as good options for that, there are not a lot. There's a lot of crappy options for that for Halloween. But it's fun. But I agree, it's overrated.
I apologize for saying Tim Burton earlier because I was one of them. I thought it was a Tim Burton film.
He's listed as producer and I think story credit and stuff like that. And he might have been kind of hands on, but he's not the director of it.
Gotcha. I was the one thing I said to you it wasn't as I was watching this because I think you were at work when I was watching this, but as I was like watching the film, the one thing I thought of, and of course this is very Weekend Crusaders of us to do this, is we like to recast films as we're watching it. And what I told you this, and I'm going to say it here, is not that Chris Sarandon's doing a bad job as Jack Skellington, but watching the character, all I kept thinking of, this would have been the perfect like voice role for Kevin Kline. I think Kevin Kline would have been a perfect like Jack Skellington.
And he could have done his own singing too.
What's that? Yeah,
he could have done his own singing.
Yeah, so
I understand. I remember from watching. It might have been one of those movies that made us things. There's a making of this where just blanked out his name, Danny Elfman, who did the music for it, wrote the songs for it. He's actually the singing voice of Jack. He was going to be the speaking voice of Jack too, and then they replaced him with Chris Sarandon instead. So yeah, they should have Kevin Kline.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, when I heard that Danny Elfman was the singer, I was like, really? Yeah. Like, okay. And that's one of the things too, is that the singing, there's no bad singing performances really in this. And I got excited when I saw Catherine O'Hara as Sally, because I love Catherine O'Hara. If anyone who's a fan of Schitt's Creek or any of her roles in film, I mean, she's a phenomenal actress. But my thing is, oh my God, the music got so fucking annoying. After like the first minute, it just felt like it was like typical kid songs where it was like the same lyric being repeated. This is Halloween. What is this? What is this? And it's just like, oh my God, just give me some new lyrics. I'm tired of listening to this. Like I was getting annoyed as the film kept going on.
And it's also a movie that's almost wall-to-wall music too. I mean, there are non-musical parts, but there's a ton of songs in this thing. Yeah.
And if you guys haven't figured this out, no, rewatching this did not change my opinion of this film. I wanted to like this. I really, really did. But it's one of those where there's not really a lot of story. It's Jack's tired of being the Pumpkin King. He stumbles into Christmas World, which they could have really done more with that, I felt, instead of him just showing up there one night and then going, this is what we're going to do. And then him just deciding, I'm going to be the new Santa. And boom, it's over. And it's like, granted, yeah, it's an hour, 20 minutes. But even an hour, 20 minutes, you can tell a lot of story in an hour, 20 minutes. But the problem is they waste so much time in this hour and 20 minutes doing like 5-minute song numbers, where it's like you could have been telling so much story in this during this like 20 to 30 minutes of song and dance that really just felt like it just didn't feel like a full film for me. This felt like oh God, what was it? Like Halloween specials or Christmas specials you would find on TV, where there's not a lot of story. It's enough to fill up an hour block, but they filled another 20 plus minutes of music. And it's just one of those things where it's like this, I feel like this film could have been so much more. I really felt like they could have done more with this film. Now, granted, that's 1993 and 1993, it's 1993, but by today's standards, I just felt like there's so much story just missing. And to me, the first character, and this is not against any of the characters on screen, but The first time that I actually got like, okay, I'm paying attention was when was it Oogie Boogie showed up? That was the first character I was like, okay, now we have like an antagonist, and like we actually have like a story starting to build. Because who's Oogie Boogie, or whatever the hell you say his name? And you have this this separate plot of this one character, because Jack Skellington tells like the little kids, don't get him, and then they go and get him, and I'm like, okay, like where are we going with this? And then they just kind of rush it in the third act with Santa and Sally and all them. But it's just one of those films where it's like, as watching it now, is like, how were kids not terrified of this film? Because even with the stop motion, like a lot of it's like for a child would be like terrifying to look at. But maybe it's because there's music.
Well, and at the time, Disney actually didn't release it under the Disney label. They used their Touchstone label because it's PG, because they were afraid that it was a little too scary for kids.
Well, yeah, because I mean, there's some that I'm like, damn, okay. But I'm like, I'm not getting scared. But I'm just like, if I showed this to like a, 4-year-old kid, 5-year-old kid, like I would be surprised if they didn't have nightmares, because like some of these. Like, what's that?
You said Nightmares Before Christmas?
Exactly, because it was just like, yeah, exactly. Oh, you did a pun. Oh, funny because it is. That's a Family Guy reference, by the way. But anyway, I don't get it. I really don't get it. This is like the emo holiday film.
Basically, and part of that's, like I said, when Hot Topic adopted it. And I think that, I think you might have, I don't know if you wouldn't have been a huge fan of it, but I think you might not be as critical of it had it not been for the, decades of buildup before you saw it, of people just praising this movie.
No, I saw it in '93, and I didn't think anything of it when I saw it in '93. And
I thought you said you got crap for not seeing it for so long. Oh, okay.
No, I got crap for not liking it.
And
for not being a fan of it.
Yeah.
Because I saw it in '93 and '94 and '95. I saw it every year because it was always on, everywhere. Mm. And I just was never a fan of it. Like, I never saw the big deal of this film, kind of like how you and I are with Napoleon Dynamite, where it's like, am I the only person that doesn't?
Let's not compare this to Napoleon Dynamite.
No, but what I'm saying is like where like you feel like you're the only person that's not in on the joke. Like, why does everyone flip out about Nightmare Before Christmas? Like, I don't get it. Like, am I missing something? And I hadn't watched it in probably like 20 years because I was, because I just don't care about it. So me rewatching it was like, maybe I'm gonna see what I'm missing. And I didn't see it. Like, the music to me is overdone and annoying. Voice cast is fine, but there's just no story. It's a 40-minute story told in an hour and 20 minutes that really needed another 40 minutes of actual story, but it's wasted on song and dance and music, which I know you like musicals, so that's, you're fine with that. But for me, I was just like, I needed a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think we disagree on this one, because I do enjoy it, although I do think that people overdo it. But I can see you made a good comparison there about talking how it feels like an hour-long Christmas special or Halloween special kind of thing. It totally does feel like that, and I can see that. But for me, it worked.
Yeah, like, I don't hate it. I'm just kind of like, all right, that was that. That's fine. Let's move on. But yeah, I mean, Nightmare Before Christmas. Obviously, it's on Disney Plus, because now that it's like, oh, everyone loves it. Disney's like, oh yeah, that was totally us. That was totally us. Like, yeah, you didn't know that was a Disney film? That was totally Disney. So yeah, you can find it on Disney Plus. Anything else you want to add for it?
Not on that one. Nope.
Yeah. All right. So we are going to move on to Brian's pick. Now, this was one that I had not seen, that Brian was very, very adamant about. Like, oh, this is hilarious. You're going to love this. And we actually did watch this one together. And watching Brian, sorry, my best friend Ryan just texted me, so I got Brian and Ryan mixed up. Brian bowl over laughing at one point in this film definitely made it a lot more enjoyable to watch. But we are talking about the zombie comedy Scout's Guide to the Apocalypse. Wow, tongue-tied there.
Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse.
Oh, I totally left out Zombie Apocalypse. I did, yeah. Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. Scout's Guide came out October 30th, 2015, had a budget of $15 million, had a weekend opening of $1.84 million. It was number 12 its opening weekend, had a finished box office of $16.13 million, $3.7 million domestic, and $12.43 million international. Yeah, like, And I think my mindset on what this film was before I saw it is the reason why it probably didn't do so well in the box office. Is that I saw the trailer for this and I was like, I don't know anyone in this cast. This just looks like a stupid film. I'm just not gonna watch it unless I hear great things. And I heard like, oh, it's actually better than it has any right to be. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, maybe I'll watch it sometime. And here's that time. But Brian really, really enjoys this film. So Brian, why don't you talk to us about Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse?
Yeah, so this movie, it came out and clearly didn't make much money at all. Now, but I think basically what it was is it was something that was going to go straight to like DVD or streaming or whatever, and they actually got good reaction to it and gave it a short release in theaters because it hit video like weeks after it hit theaters. It was pretty fast. But this is one. I enjoy horror comedies a lot, and this one, just the style of it and stuff looked really fun. It looked kind of like it was a teenage version of like the Shaun of the Dead kind of thing, or a Zombieland Express, closer to it. But so I went and saw this again, like you, not knowing any of the cast, which now we know Ty Sheridan's been all kinds of stuff. Logan Miller's in like the escape room movies, things like that. It's got Dave Koechner in it. It's probably the biggest, most recognizable name. Well, yeah, Horace Leachman. But this is a movie that I think is just it's my kind of comedy. It's fun. It's gross at times. It's politically incorrect and raunchy comedy at times, which I'm okay with that. But it's just, if you're looking for a movie that's just fun, I really like it. I think it's very creative in a lot of places too. It's directed by Christopher Landon, he did this right before he did the Happy Death Day, and of course he went on to do Freaky as well and some other things.
Oh yeah, I love the director. I'm loving everything that he's been doing.
Yeah, I'll forgive him for having directed a Paranormal Activity because those suck. But but this is, I think, the one where he kind of found his niche, where it's like his niche, where it's like he does this kind of horror comedy with like this Happy Death Day and Freaky. They all kind of have the same kind of tone to it. I think this one's probably a little bit more slapsticky than the others, just because of the kind of movie it is. But it's definitely not a comedy to it. Yeah. Now, this is your first time watching it. What do you think?
Well, I mean, like I said, now
and I want to say one thing, that the parts I was laughing so hard at, while I enjoyed it, I was having more fun watching Sean's face as he was watching it for the first time. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, with me, it was one of those things where now I know a lot of the cast, like said, Ty Sheridan, Ready Player One, and Nick Miller, the Escape Room movies, or Love, Simon was the first time I saw him, and then of course you got the I'm blanking on his name, but the guy from Workaholics.
Oh yeah, he's in a small part of it.
Yeah, he basically starts the film. Yeah. And then of course, David. I mean, everyone knows him from Anchorman and like 97 other films that he pops up in. But yeah, I didn't really quite know what to expect, except that I knew it was going to be a comedy. Because the one thing that I remembered, and this is one of the parts where you bowled over laughing, because I was like, what do I remember from the trailer of this film? Is the cat zombie. He's on the cat's on the shoulder, and he's like, so I remember that from the trailer, and that is a funny scene. But yeah, like watching this, film, I would definitely say after the opening, where we get the start of the zombie apocalypse, and you have that middle ground where the apocalypse hasn't started yet everywhere else, so you're kind of building the characters and you're kind of building the building blocks to the story. Yes, it does take a little while. Once we get to the actual zombie aspect of the film, then it's fun. It's super fun. Also, oh god, I blanked on her name. The sister, Halston Sage. Did I say that right? Yeah, Halston Sage. Which I love her from anyone who's seen the Orville or Prodigal Son. She plays the sister. I wish she had a bigger role in the film than what she actually had, but I mean she's good in what we had in it. But yeah, this film, once you get all three of the scouts together again, because they do get separated right before everything happens, there are some great moments. Logan Miller is hilarious in the film. I mean, he definitely is bringing the comedy in every scene he's in. Sometimes he can be a little annoying, but once we get to the zombie aspect of it, I mean, you have like the police zombie. That's all I'm going to say. We get that one moment, which is just ridiculous. You have the stripper zombie. You have the old lady neighbor zombie and that particular scene that happens. And then Ty Sheridan, the one part that Brian literally dies over. And I'm not going to say what happens because that's something that you kind of just need to see it without actually being told. It wasn't necessarily what was happening that killed me. It was Ty Sheridan screaming that killed me because his scream was pitch perfect at that moment. And that's what watching Brian's reaction to it and then that scream killed me. And it's definitely like it's not going to reach Zombieland levels. Like it's nowhere near close to Zombie, but it's not trying to be at the same time. It's not trying to be better than Zombieland. It's just kind of doing its own little thing. You got these three, I think they're sophomores because I think they're saying they're going into junior year. I think they said that during a car ride. And so it's kind of in that like super bad stage where like, wait, hey, you know, it's time for us to get serious about girls. Let's get laid. Let's do this. But then you throw a zombie element into the film. And when you actually let them full on go into the R rating with the zombies and the jokes and even the brutality or gore of the zombie gore, that's when the movie really starts to work. It's when you have that like about 20, 30 minutes in between where it's just us getting to know the scouts, which it's not bad, but it's just like, all right, let's go.
It does take a while to get going there.
Exactly. But when we get to like the party, that party scene is shot awesomely. That is a fun scene. It's enjoyable.
No biggest rave ever, but let's just say.
Oh yeah. It's not the biggest rave of the year all time.
20 people
dead. Like, oh my god, that like. I can't remember where the budgets were for these two films between House of the Dead and this, but this does a way better job of selling the biggest rave of the year kind of thing. But yeah, no, it was definitely a decent, solid zombie comedy that I was not expecting to really like. But yeah, it was definitely a surprise. I had fun watching it, and I enjoyed the. I wouldn't say it's like post credits or anything, but like the they kind of did like The Hangover where they were showing just like still shots of the night kind of thing, which those are funny. You know, like I said, there's that one scene that Brian dies on. That comes back around again during the credits, but I would definitely say it's worth checking out if you want a nice, funny zombie comedy. It's worth a watch.
It's good R-rated zombie comics. I mean, this if they had done this like because it's teens, if they had done it as PG-13, I think it would not be nearly as funny.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely enjoyable, and like I said, knowing the cast now than back when it came out definitely helped me a little bit because I knew the people, so I was like, oh, okay, I know where these guys are capable of doing and stuff like that. Whereas if it just felt like one of those movies where it's like I don't know any of these people, it would make it a little bit harder for me to invest in. Which sadly, like I'm surprised the was the girl, she really didn't do anything after this.
No, not really.
I was like, she seemed like was it Denise Sarah Dumont? Yeah, shocked. Like she did a pretty decent job in the film. Like I'm surprised. I
think if the film had done better, maybe she would have gotten some attention. But yeah,
you know what though, she does remind me of oh god, what's her name? Also from the Orville, Pilecki.
Oh, Adrian Pilecki.
She reminded me a little bit of her. So maybe it's just like, oh, you know, she's basically that, and it's like, well, if we want someone like her, we'll get Pilecki. But yeah, no, it was a decent film, Brian. I'm glad you showed it to me. It was something I probably would never just randomly watched on my own. But yeah,
and it had a good soundtrack. I know how much you hate the soundtracks of the movies I suggest.
Yes, it was. Well, I mean, no, I hate the score, which this one doesn't really have a score. It's basically soundtrack. But yeah, there was definitely a lot of times where Brian was like,
they just got the needle drops that work, you know. It's just fun.
I was like, okay, like it's not that good, but Brian like trying to get into it was another enjoyment out of that. But yeah, Scouts, is it on anything?
You can watch it free with ads on Pluto TV or Roku channel.
And you guys already know how Brian and I feel about Pluto TV. So try watching it anywhere else.
Fine to find these movies and watch them. Just know that you'll watch a lot of commercials and probably the same commercial over and over again.
Yeah, but anyway, we are now moving on to our stinker pick. This was one that Brian and I literally had no idea what we were walking into with this film. We just went off of the title, and that's a whole story that we're going to get into. We are talking about The Haunting of Molly Hartley. The Haunting of Molly Hartley came out October 31st, 2008, had a budget of $5 million, had a weekend opening of $5.42 million. It was number 5 its opening weekend. It had a finished box office of $15.41 million, $13.55 million domestic, and $1.85 million international. One thing that we almost did when we were trying to watch this is we almost clicked on the sequel, The Exorcism of Molly Hartley. Luckily, we didn't click on that
which, as I understand, is like a sequel in name only, anyway.
Yeah, because there's no one from the original film in that film. But yeah, so The Haunting of Molly Hartley. Like I said, you and I had no idea what the film was about. We just like, oh, it's a haunting, ghosts, stuff.
I honestly thought going into it, I was thinking of, because there's a lot of movies that came out at the same time, with The Exorcism of Emily Rose and The Last Exorcism and all these other haunting of movies, Haunting of Connecticut. So I had no idea what this one was. I thought it was one of those. This is not at all what I was expecting. I also wasn't expecting us to break our rule and review a TV show for the first time ever. So
yes, because that was that was one of the biggest problems that we had with this film, is that I don't remember when we said it in the film. It was like, this feels like a CW show. Like, if every aspect of this movie feels like I'm watching the pilot episode of a CW show that is just teenage romance and ants, and
like not the show at some prep school somewhere.
Yeah, was it
looked like a CW TV show. Something. It sounded like a CW TV show. The acting was the level of CW TV shows.
Yeah, and it was, and that was the funny thing too, is we were like 20, 30 minutes in, and you go, this really isn't that bad. You're like, I'm invested in what's going on. And I'm just like, eh. And then we got about 20 more minutes in, and we're like, I think I asked for a time check. We were at 48 minutes. And I go, okay, we're in the I like to call it the sweet spot of the horror movie. It's usually at the between 40 and 50 minute mark is during a horror film is when shit starts to get real. And we're at 48 minutes and nothing's happened yet.
We got I think past the hour mark. We're finally like, okay, things are starting to happen. But they've got 20 minutes left.
We were at the 48 minute mark, and we paused it because I think it was during the party. And we were like, and Brian paused it. I think, didn't you have to go? I think you had to walk away. You had to do something. We paused it. And I was like, I go, oh no. You're like, what? I go, there's only there's less than a half hour left of this film. And you're like, seriously? I go, yeah. I go, we haven't had anything happen yet. I was like, this isn't good. You're either going to have to start right fucking now, have something happen. I go, or they're just going to dump truck this thing, all in the last 10 minutes. And frankly, even then, they
kind of did both.
really do anything. This film is. Let's get the cast out of the way. You have what was it, Haley Bennett, who I know from Magnificent Seven. She's gonna be in Cyrano at the end of the year. Is it that end of the year, Cyrano? Yeah. Then you got Chance Crawford, which everyone knows from Gossip Girl and The Boys. Jake Weber, who we know from Dawn of the Dead. Shannon Woodward, who we like. Yeah, we like Shannon Woodward. And then you got Annalyn McCord, who I knew from the 90210 remakes. Josh Stewart, who plays the teacher. So it was people that we knew, we recognized them. Now, granted, they're not movie stars; they're usually TV stars, which made it even more feel like a CW show. But there's one lingering problem with this film, Brian. And what is the problem with the film?
The fact there's no story to it at all,
and there's no haunting at all.
Oh, yeah, it's the Haunting Molly Hartley. There's no haunting involved. She's creeped out by her mom, but there's no haunting. There's no supernatural. There's one flash of a supernatural element in one scene of the movie, which is A, out of nowhere, B, never addressed again, and C, of course, they put that in the trailer.
we ended up watching the trailer after the film, going, okay, is this a misrepresentation of the film? Let's see what they did here, because I can't remember what the film was called, but I told you about this. I can't remember if I said this on the show or not. I remember there was this horror film. I saw the trailer for it, and I was like, oh, this looks really, really good. And then I went and saw it in theaters, and it was nothing like the trailer made it out to be. And I was pissed. I was like, this is misadvertising. This is, I feel like I just got screwed out of my money. This is bullshit. And I feel like we were getting, what's that?
For me, that was The Empty Man, which wasn't terrible just because it had James Badge Dale in it. but it was not at all what the trailers made out to be, a horror film, and it was not.
Yeah, and so like by the end of this film, you and I kind of felt that way. And we watched the trailer, and granted, the trailer is showing all the parts of the film, and even the trailer doesn't
the whole film.
Yeah, oh yeah, it gives away like the main plot points, the twist at the end, which we saw from a mile away. Like you watch the trailer, you watch the film, like that's it. Like we really save you an hour and 20 minutes, but it's nothing happens in this film. Like here, spoilers. Here's the main plot of the film. Apparently, it's like a fucking crossroads demon or some shit where this demon shows up, or ghosts, or cult, or witches, or whoever the fuck they are, and they go to a mother and father whose baby's about to die, and they go, hey, you know, I can save your baby, but in 18 years, we're going to take them, or they're going to become ours, which they say, yes, save my baby. And the first 10 minutes of the movie is showing a completely different character, and it's about to be her, and like we're like figuring out the story for them, and then like the father goes on like a suicidal rampage and basically kills his daughter before her 18th birthday. And then we get the main story, and you find out that like the main girl, played by Haley Bennett, Molly, basically is just survived an attack from her mother. Her mother tried to kill her because her 18th birthday is coming up, and she's constantly like basically has PTSD from it. You know, thinking that her mom's trying to get her and stuff like that when her mom's supposed to be in an insane asylum. And we basically keep living in her world of, you know, they move to a new town, new school. She's getting hit on by the pretty boy. You got the jealous girlfriend. You got the Bible thumping friend, which made Brian and I go, "Oh my god!" Which we'll touch on the Bible thumper. Not yet. But the main haunt is that this girl just basically keeps having panic attacks and like headaches, and you find out that she has like a tumor in her nose, and she gets that taken out, and then she's just like a completely different character until her mom shows back up. It just like tries to kill her again. And then she turns 18, and you find out that like everyone in the town, or everyone that surrounds her is like a part of this cult that's like in on it. And the movie ends, and that's it until next week's episode on the CW, when the next band pops up to play. Because that was the other thing that made it feel very CW-y, is that like the movie was somberly quiet until a song played. And then the volume got turned up to like a 14. And I told Brian, I kept waiting for like that scroll in the bottom left corner going, if you like this music, it's by the band, blah, blah, blah. You know, go to Napster, or go to, you know, this, you know, Apple to download their CD. Because it's just, it blared every time music played, because it was like they were trying to advertise the vocal talents. And just it's horrible acting throughout. Chance Crawford, I'm glad he is on The Boys, where he's funny now, because he's wooden as hell. Shannon Woodward is completely unused in this film. Like by the end,
she was the main attraction for me coming into this. I really like everything she's done. But then you put her in it, she's barely used as it is, and then she just disappears.
But we're just like, by the end of it, I was like, so what was Shannon Woodward's character's like point? Like, she doesn't get killed. She's not a part of the cult. She's just there, you know, like there's no point. And then Haley Bennett's Molly is just basically kind of being scared and confused for an hour and 20 minutes. And that's basically her character, which, I mean, I guess she does okay, but it's not, there's no substance to anything that's going on. But then you got, what's her name? The Bible thumper. Do you remember what her character name is? What's that?
Yeah, that was Alexis Shanna Collins.
Well, the character was Alexis, yeah. So you got this one character. Her name's Alexis, and she's a Jesus freak. And the movie's words, not ours. And literally, I think every time she tried to bring up religion, Brian and I both just went, Jesus Christ.
Well, because if somebody wants to be a Jesus freak or whatever, if a character is religious, that happens a lot in horror movies. They have like that, you know, point of view. That's fine. But this girl was like, I literally looked up at one point to make sure this movie was not like made by Pureflix or one of these companies, like one of these religious films, because it felt like it honestly, for the longest time, felt like it was heading towards. It felt like it was heading towards, you know, we wanted to make a religious film to tell people about, you know, Jesus and that and how he can save us, but we did it, you know, we disguised as a horror movie to kind of bring in the kids. And because I honestly looked it up to make sure it wasn't, because it felt that much like it was. Because there'd be all these times where Molly be talking about all these things that are happening to her, and this other girl's be like, "Well, if you look at Jesus, blah blah blah." And at one point, she takes her to her not her church, but whatever it was, her.
It was like a Christian community center.
Yeah, something like that. Would all of a sudden just show up there. We're just like, oh my god.
And it was one of those things. Was like, look, we get it. There's exorcism movies that have religion, and it's like, but that's the plot. You have priests, you have all this stuff. But no, this felt like the horror. I'm using the quotations very, very liberate here of like Saved. It's like, basically it's like the horror version of Saved without it actually being a horror. And every time she popped up on screen, Brian, I just went, oh great, like go. Just go. Like, is she gonna die? Like, can we kill her, please, so we don't have to listen to her anymore? And I know anyone who's religious is probably gonna find that offensive, but oh wow.
No, again, I don't want people to be religious, but the way this character was portrayed was just like, oh my god, give it up already.
It's eye-rollingly bad. You're just like, oh my god, please.
Clearly, she wants nothing to do with you.
It's just this movie is. It's not a movie. It's not.
It's not like a TV show, and it can't be a movie because it certainly is not long enough, coherent enough. It doesn't have a plot.
It's the first 2 episodes of a season, and it just ends, and like the twist happens, and you're like, okay, well, we're gonna go from there, and then it just like
that's the end.
Jumps ahead to like graduation, and then it's like credits, and we're like, so what the fuck was this film? And like we literally were like bashing our brains, like trying to figure like what was this movie? What was The Haunting? Like what's going on? And I think you looked up what was it, a Letterboxd review, and it basically described exactly what we were going through at that moment. Which was
he was talking about how there's no haunting in it, and it says we were not prepared by how much brain power we'd have to use trying to watch this movie to figure out what it was.
Yeah, and it doesn't deserve to have that much brain power. Like we were utterly just like, I really am trying to figure out where there was a film in this. What was the story and everything? And this got a freaking sequel, and it made like a good chunk of money. And maybe because it was just they were smart. They released a movie that had a Halloween theme title on Halloween, and it is not
the kind of movie they absolutely released this time of year where it's just like we put out anything scary, the kids are going to go see it because it's that season.
There's no ghosts in this film. There's no possession. There's no demons. There's no exorcisms. There's nothing. There's nothing in this film that makes this a horror film, except for that it's called The Haunting of Molly Hartley. There's nothing in this film that makes it a scary film. And oh my god, like it was frustrating. Like we're literally watching, like it felt like Squid Game for a second there, where we're watching the clock because like, oh my god, there's like 10 minutes left. Nothing's happened yet. Something's got to happen, right? There's 5 minutes left. Something's got to happen, right? No. Time clock ends. End credits. Nothing happens. And you're just like, what the fuck's the point of this movie? And the question is, there is no point in this movie. This was literally, to me, a con job, kind of like The Happening and the other film. I really can't remember what the movie is called, where it trapped you into thinking you were going to watch a horror film, and then it made you stay in your seat for an hour and 20 minutes, and then the credits ran, and you just stood there going, did we just get fucked? I think we just got fucked. And that's The Haunting of Molly Hartley. It's basically a con artist of a film. And anyone who watched the sequel, I feel incredibly sorry for too, because it's called The Exorcism of Molly Hartley. And you know what? I'm almost halfway to believe that there's no actual exorcism in this film. And I actually read the wiki that there is an exorcism in the film. But still, this movie was utter bullshit. So don't waste your time watching this movie. I don't think it's on anything anyway, is there?
You can watch it free with ads on Tubi TV.
Oh, yeah. That's right. We did watch it with ads. But yeah, avoid it. This movie sucked. Oh, God, it sucked. Moving on, we're going to go to something a little more lighter, a little more funnier. We're going to go to my pick. Not a horror film by any means. We're talking about...
never mind.
What?
Except for one scene.
Yeah, there's one scene that's horror. But we were talking about the Seth Rogen and Elizabeth Banks comedy, Zack and Miri Make a Porno. Zack and Miri Make a Porno came out October 31st, 2008, had a budget of $24 million, had a weekend opening of $10.06 million. It was number 2 its opening weekend. and a finished box office of $42.78 million, $31.45 million domestic, and $11.32 million international. This movie, first off, I mean, directed by Kevin Smith, which anyone who's watched Kevin Smith movies, as soon as you're like 5 minutes into this film, you're like, oh, this is 100% a Kevin Smith movie, because it totally is. There's never in this film that you never not realize that it was a Kevin Smith movie, with like the cast alone and just the way it was shot. So if you're a fan of Kevin Smith, I think you have a general idea of what kind of movie you're going into. But you got Seth Rogen, Elizabeth Banks. They're playing Zach and Mary, and they're basically been best friends. I think about the first grade or something like that. And they're roommates, but they've never hooked up or been together or anything. But they're running into money problems, and they decide, let's make a porno. After I think they had like a high school reunion, and they felt like losers, and like, well, who's going to pay to watch us make a porno? They go, all these people from our high school reunion will love to watch us basically hook up and have sex. And so then they make a porno. That's basically the gist of the film. This movie is, to me, it's so hilarious. And mainly, like, you're watching the film and like you're through the beginning parts, and I mean, you get the part where Seth Rogen puts the hand warmer in his pants and it gets stuck. Like, that's such a Seth Rogen scene. I love that you get the cameo of I'm blanking on the actor's name, but the Indian character from 40-Year-Old Virgin, who basically is playing the same fucking character. What's his name?
Jerry Bednob is the actor's name. It's Mr. Surya. Yeah,
which everyone here knows the 40-Year-Old Virgin is my favorite comedy. And so having him pop up and basically play effectively the same character with Craig Robinson, who I've met in real life, who's one of the nicest, coolest dudes I've ever met. His characters, and then you get, to me, the highlight of the film, the best part of the film in my eyes, is when they go to the actual high school reunion and we meet the wonderful Justin Long as Brandon St. John. Is it St. John?
Yes. St. Randy. Brandon St. Randy.
Brandon St. Randy. Comedic platinum gold. This entire scene. Between him just talking and Seth Rogen reacting to anything that Justin Long says in the scene, and then him talking to Brandon Routh, and then you throw Elizabeth Banks in there. That whole sequence, to me, is one of the funniest scenes I've ever seen. Like, I was in tears, dying, because they just let Justin Long go. Just say, have fun. And it is some of the funniest shit I've ever seen Justin Long do. And then they brought his character back, and I think it was a Jay and Silent Bob the reboot. Isn't he the lawyer for Jay and Silent Bob? The rest of the film is decent and solid as well. And there's one thing that I kind of wish they did instead of but that reunion scene, I was in tears that entire time. I love Justin Long's character in this film. What are your thoughts on Zach and Mary? I'll stop.
This is kind of that phase where it's like when Kevin Smith stopped doing his View Askew movies. He did Jersey Girl, which is a little more personal, like family kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
But then that obviously didn't do well, so he kind of decided to go back to basically raunchy movies. And so, but he didn't want to do View Askew, so he did this, which I really enjoy this movie. I think Seth Rogen is a perfect kind of fit for Kevin Smith's kind of humor, so I think that worked really well. Elizabeth Banks is always solid in comedies, and of course he fills it up with tons of supporting cast, which is great as well. A lot of funny people.
Plus we got to see Jason Mewes as not Jay for once.
Yeah.
And I actually liked him as what was his name? Jason Mewes.
Lester.
I'm not saying his name.
Lester.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And Jeff Anderson as Deacon as well. But continue.
Yeah, no, the reunion scene I thought it was actually very funny. But I actually think I like different parts of the reunion scene for you. Like I liked when he was talking to the one girl, who's like, I'm gonna get back at him. He goes, I want to one up him. He goes, well, you could have sex in the bathroom. She's like, no, it's like, what a hand job. All right, make it quick.
Sorry about the elbow.
There's a lot of the scenes in the reunion I really liked. Actually, the Justin Long, I love Justin Long, especially in comedies. I think he's great. I did not enjoy the scene that much because the voice he was using was annoying. It was just stupid and pointless.
That to me, why it worked so well was the voice.
But also, it's one of those things where they clearly just let someone go. That's one of the problems I have with like Judd Apatow movies. There's a lot of funny stuff in there, but there's often scenes where it's like you can tell they just let people go, and you're like, okay, can we rein this in a little bit? And it just needs. Sometimes you need direction. And
I agree. But in this case, I think it was great because it was more or less. It'd be one thing if you just let him go, and you weren't getting a reaction out of anybody, but it was you letting him go and you just watching Seth Rogen, and Seth Rogen just go, "This is the greatest night of my life," and shit, like that was like allowing him to go, and then watching like Brandon Routh's expression and Seth Rogen, and
Brandon Routh. I actually like Brandon Routh a lot. Aside from Superman, I actually like a lot of the stuff Brandon Routh's done outside of there.
He's such an unfairly treated actor.
Yeah, there is a this is a total tangent. There is a horror comedy comic book movie, whatever I call it, called Dylan Dog Dead of Night, which no one in the world has seen except for me because it made like
I've never seen it, but I know what it is. I just never.
It made like $20. He's actually very good in it. It's actually very funny and very good. The problem is it looks like crap because apparently, from what I understand, like the day before or like the week before it started filming, they all of a sudden decided to cut the budget in half, and so the whole thing went to shit. And you can tell. But it's still a very fun movie. Anyway, but Brandon Routh shows in that movie how he can carry a movie as a lead, not as Superman and stuff. And when he shows up in stuff like this in bit parts, I really enjoy him as well. So I did enjoy the scene they were in. It just wasn't one of my favorite of the movie. But this is one of those movies that it's beginning to end. There's comedy throughout the whole thing. I love it. Sometimes when it tries to get to the message of the movie or the relationship between them, it gets a little bit more dramatic. I'm like,
you get to that third act, like, oh, we got to have someone at odds part of the film.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't need to throw drama into my Kevin Smith movies. That's why Chasing Amy is my least favorite Kevin Smith movie as far as the View Askew stuff.
I think it's maybe the only one I haven't watched.
Yeah, because it's Kevin Smith trying to be serious and he can't do serious. But I mean, here it's just like it's not whole scenes, it's certain aspects of it, which I'm kind of like, okay, whatever. Let's get back to this and get back to the comedy. But when it's funny, it's very funny.
Yeah, and like I said, Craig Robinson, I love Craig Robinson. Hands down, his best moment is like, her name's Bubbles. I was like, I just wanted to see titties. That's all I wanted.
My biggest problem with the film is that their big revelation, their big idea that they come up with that's supposed to be so clever and original is to make Star Horrors. And Star Horrors was made in 1978 or something, and like 5 times since then. It's far from an original idea. Anyway.
Which I even told you, and that was the one part of the film was like, you went through the trouble of making Star Horrors and giving them like costumes and all this stuff, and then you do basically they lose all of that, and they're like, oh, we'll just shoot it in the coffee shop. No, I wanted to see Star Horrors. I wanted to see their version of Star Horrors. Like, I'm so bummed that we never got to see their version of Star, because they clearly made it. Because you hear it at the end of the film that they did make Star Horrors, like the whole trilogy. Like, was it the Revenge of the Ass or the Revenge of whatever?
Revenge of the Shit.
Revenge of the Shit, the all anal film. And it's like I wanted to see the Star Wars saga from them. And it bummed me out that we never got that. We just got the coffee scene or the coffee shop porno. But yeah, I mean, like I said, Jason Mewes in something that wasn't Jay. I mean, he was Jay-like, but very, very toned down Jay. Like, he's actually a likable actor when he's not playing Jay, which I like Jay. But I mean, seeing him be something else, was solid. The rest of the cast, I mean, you got Katie Morgan, who's like an actual porn star. I mean, she was actually very good in this. I mean, she's actually pretty decent in the film. Yeah. Oh God, what's his name? Who plays Barry? Is it Barry?
Oh, Barry, yeah. It's I saw him. Ricky Mabe is his name.
Yeah, like he was funny in his little moments here and there, and then of course Bubbles was funny in her little moments too. I mean, you do have your little Kevin Smith things in there that are just not funny. Oh no, one of my favorite parts of the film was oh God, what's his name? I love the actor. Oh God, I'm blanking. It's when they're in the middle of shooting the sex scene and he walks in because he wants coffee.
Oh, Tyler Labine.
Thank you, Tyler Labine. And he's just like, guys open. I was at the game with Roethlisberger football. Just like, and they're in literally like middle of a sex scene. He's just standing like, "You're the man. I love you. Cool." Go Steelers! I love Bean so much.
Yeah, he was great in this. The other thing I want to say I really liked in this was that when they were filming the actual porn scenes, was how like intentionally bad they were. Like just like a real movie. Like, I'm gonna stick my dick in, just like dancing around. Like, what's he doing?
Let's fuck.
Let us. Yeah,
it's in the trailer, but it's like the part where she's playing with his belt buckle and he's just like. It's a funny movie. It's one of the. I feel like one of the last real like sex comedies in a long time. I can't really think of many sex comedies anymore.
I mean, there was stuff after this. There was, we talked about Sex Drive and some other things, but
we're talking like more porno.
Honestly, in the PC era, you don't see these kind of things anymore.
Yeah, but it's like, oh god, back and rewatching these is super funny. And then of course we had the one scene which were.
Jeff Anderson has one horror scene in the movie.
Jeff Anderson is a trooper for that scene, because even if it obviously it wasn't the real thing, but just like acting wise, I would have thrown up. Even knowing that it's not really that, but just still having that happen, I would have thrown up during that.
And I love the scene afterwards outside too with him.
Zack and Miri Make a Porno is one of those films. I think it came out and just not a lot of people paid attention to it.
Oh, it made no money. It's basically the movie that sent Kevin Smith to start
going back to the Jay and Silent Bob's.
Well, first to start smoking weed, because Seth Rogen introduced that. He got hard into it because he was like all broken up about how bad this movie did, and then so he went and did Cop Out, which is horrible because he didn't want to do his own stuff anymore. And then finally he's like, well, I guess I'll go back to the well with the VSQ stuff. So. Yeah,
and there's nothing wrong with the VSQ stuff. It's just Kevin Smith has the ability to do so much more. It's just it's like he doesn't want, like, when he branches out, it doesn't work. He just immediately falls back.
I don't know if his audience like only wants VSQ or what, because some of the movies I like most, Zack and Miri, I really enjoy. Jersey Girl, I really enjoy more than most people, but I really like that one. But they don't do well at the box office, so then he doesn't do anything. He doesn't try.
Didn't we talk about Jersey Girl on the show?
We did.
That's what I thought we did. It's like, and honestly, like, I love Jay and Silent Bob, but my favorite one is Dogma. Mm-hmm. Dogma's my favorite one, hands down, like by a long shot. Dogma's the best one in my opinion, because it felt the least like a Jay and Silent Bob movie, even though Jay and Silent Bob's in.
It's like film. They're in it, but it's not about.
No, they're along for the ride, but they are not the focal point. Now, I like the Jay and Silent Bob films, like I like Reboot and Strikes Back and all them, but Dogma to me is just the cast in Dogma is fantastic. But I enjoy the hell out of Zack and Miri Make a Porno. It's one of those. I remember when it came out, I did not have high hopes for it, because I think I was starting to not turn against, but I was kind of starting to like be turned off by Seth Rogen and his.
He was one of those. This happens to a lot of like comedy actors. Well, as soon as they break it big, all of a sudden they're in like every movie coming out.
Yeah,
and you're just like, slow down.
Like I can't remember what came out. I'm pretty sure Observer Report was before this, but like he made Observer Report, and I was like, okay, Seth Rogen's just not funny anymore. And then he had like Pineapple Express and this, and I was like, okay, I was like, he's still there, but it's just, it kind of depends on his films. Like he also had like Green Hornet, which was garbage. Oh god, Green Hornet was horrible. But Zack and Miri, I don't think I've ever really disliked Elizabeth Banks in anything. I think she's basically kills it in everything I think I've seen her in. Like the movies might not be great, but she's always great in everything I've seen her in. And yeah, this one is just, if you guys have never checked out Zack and Miri Make a Porno, like, it's on Netflix. Check it out. It's hilarious. It's so much fun. And like I said, Justin Long as Brandon St. Randy is, to me, top class remarks for Justin Long, because I love him in this film. Anything else you want to add for Zack and Miri?
Nope.
All right. So we're moving on to our featured film. This is a film that we, in agreement, and we did not plan this, we both agreed that this has a performance that is one of the biggest Oscar snubs in recent memory. It is a travesty that the performance in this film did not get acknowledged or even nominated. Is bullshit. And we're talking about the 2014 thriller Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler came out October 31st, 2014, had a budget of $8.5 million, had a weekend opening of $10.44 million. It was number 2 its opening weekend, and had a finished box office of $47.39 million, $32.38 million domestic, and $15.01 million international. Jake Gyllenhaal. Like, this dude was Bubble Boy. He was Bubble Boy. Did anyone expect Bubble Boy to be one of the best actors out there? I didn't. Did you?
Oh, absolutely not.
Absolutely, yeah.
No.
I mean, he went from Bubble Boy to Donnie Darko. You're like, okay, cool. But then he comes out with Brokeback Mountain. I said this year's film, The Guilty, on Netflix. The movie itself is what it is, but his performance in it is fantastic. And then you have Zodiac as well.
Brothers, Southpaw, End of Watch. I mean, the list goes on and on. He has great performances.
He's a phenomenal actor.
Prisoners, especially. I think I already said that.
Yeah, and he never gets any recognition for his performance. But Nightcrawler was the film that everyone was like, this is his moment. He's going to get acknowledged. People are going to finally see how amazing Jake Gyllenhaal is. Crickets. Nothing. Not even did he even get a Golden Globe nominee for this?
No.
What the fuck? This is a phenomenal performance by him.
Oh wait, I take that back. He did get nominated for Golden Globe nomination.
Okay. I was gonna say, what the hell?
But I mean, I was just looking at the list from that year's Oscars, and the Oscar went to Eddie Redmayne in Theory of Everything because you play somebody handicapped, you win.
Yeah.
Steve Carell for Foxcatcher, Bradley Cooper, American Sniper, Benedict Cumberbatch in The Imitation Game, and Michael Keaton in Birdman, which I liked Michael Keaton in Birdman, but I'm sorry, Jake was better than all these.
Justified. Imitation Game, I was excited for Foxcatcher, and I was greatly disappointed in that film. Steve Carell's because he put on makeup and he acted a certain way. That's why.
Jake was by far better than all those people. He was.
I mean, if anything, to me, Michael Keaton might be the only competition. He didn't even freaking win the dang thing. This film is unnerving. It is beautifully shot. Oh, it's so beautifully shot. And his character is the closest to being Patrick Bateman without being a serial killer, I feel. Like how knowledgeable and precise his character is in this film. What's it? He's something Bloom. Lewis Bloom. Lewis Bloom. His methodical mindset in this film is horrifying. And just watching him go further and further down this rabbit hole of this career and him excelling at it and him basically doing all the stuff that he does in this film to get where he's at. This is more of a horror film than The Haunting of Molly Hartley, because this shit really happens. There are probably 50 Lewis Blooms out there in the world right now. And they get away with exactly what he does in this film. And I love that the movie ends with him even being more prosperous. Like, he doesn't get like his comeuppance or anything because he doesn't get caught. I mean, it's a masterful performance. Go ahead with Nightcrawler.
Yeah, this is a movie that it's a drama but it plays out more like a thriller. It could have been a straightforward story, but it plays out like you said, almost like a horror movie, like a thriller, just because in the way it's filmed, in the way it's done, in the music, in the performances, especially because Jake Gyllenhaal plays this thing like a total sociopath. I mean, this guy, even when he's just having a conversation with somebody, he's got these bug eyes look to him, and this the tone of his voice.
You've never felt more uncomfortable. You'll be talking about the weather, and he's gonna make you feel uncomfortable.
He's just a slimy, dislikable person from the beginning. I mean, he's the the protagonist of the movie, I guess, but he's just such a slimy guy that even just having a conversation with him, like you said about the weather, you can just tell it's like, ooh, I don't like this guy. The way he makes you feel just looking at this guy and talking to him, and that's before he starts manipulating and blackmailing Rene Russo's character. That's before
that whole dinner scene.
Yeah. It's before he screws over Riz Ahmed in multiple ways.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing about this movie. The cast, top to bottom. I mean, you have Jake Gyllenhaal, you have Riz Ahmed, Rene Russo, Bill Paxton. There's somebody else I'm leaving out. I'm forgetting about this, but it was just talked about. I just loved everybody in this movie. And Bill Paxton, when this his last role or one of his last ones, I think.
I'll look it up. Keep going.
But Bill Paxton is one of those guys who's solid in everything he does, and this is very much just a supporting role. But just the interaction between his character and Lou Bloom and the way that ends, their whole relationship ends in this movie. That's
he had like at least 5 to 6 other things.
Oh, others after that. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's a movie that, it makes you follow this person that you really are unnerved and you don't like from the start. And just as the movie goes on, you find more and more reason to dislike this person. You cannot look away. It's almost like watching the accidents and things that he's filming, because I can't look away from this disgusting person.
And that's another thing that makes Jake Gyllenhaal so phenomenal in this role, because you start watching the movie and you're like, oh, I'm rooting for Lewis because it's Jake Gyllenhaal. Because and that's always the biggest job for anyone in these films, whether it be like Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, whoever, is when you start the movie, you don't know who the character is. So when you're seeing the character, you're like, it's Leo, I'm going to root for Leo. Or it's Brad Pitt, I'm going to root for Brad Pitt, or George Clooney, or whatever. It is their job to make you
forget it's Brad Pitt.
And it's not Jake Gyllenhaal, and that it's this creepy motherfucker named Lewis Bloom. And Gyllenhaal does it so seamlessly. Because you have this guy, he just wants a job, he just wants a career. And literally his first scene, he attacks a security guard. And you're just like, wait, what am I what is he? What am I watching here? We never find out what happens to the security guard too, by the way. Does he just knock him out? Does he kill him? We don't know. And then we get him like, he's like, I'm motivated, I'm persistent, I want a job, give me a chance. And then he stumbles upon a wreck and he sees Bill Paxton basically being Bill Paxton and decides, this is what I'm gonna do. And then just as he further goes down that rabbit hole, you're no longer seeing Jake Gyllenhaal. You're seeing Lewis Bloom, and he completely just transforms into this character of this horrifically, sociopath, like you said, character. And it's horrifying. And to watch how he manipulates Riz Ahmed and just turns the tables. And at that one point in the film when Riz Ahmed tries to flip it back, you're like, oh, shit.
This is not going to end well for him.
Like, you just fucked up. You fucked up. So, because you can just see the wheels turning, like, yeah, okay, cool, yeah, you can totally, yeah, that's fine. You're like,
well, that's the thing about Riz's character as well, because I like that he played it. He was so, I don't know, vulnerable. He's like this guy who's essentially homeless. He'll take any job. He'll take the lowest pay. He just wants something to do. And unfortunately, Lou Bloom sees this, and he totally, he hardly pays him at all, and he treats him like shit, and he has him doing things that are questionable. And so when he finally tries to stand up for himself, you're like, oh man, I actually root for that character, but it's not going to go well.
And he always keeps getting, he's like, your performance review, I see a lot of great things, you're doing right, everything I'm asking you to do, you're right on the precipice of something big. And you're like, I've been in jobs like that where you're like, I'm so over this, and then a manager will say that, you're like, oh, okay, I just gotta keep trying.
You could have been manager, Sean, just saying.
Just shut up. but it's one of those things where he's so, like you say, he's a sociopath, but he's so good at manipulating.
He's so intelligent too, honestly.
He's way too intelligent to just be where he was. And I think it's more of this because he just constantly rubs everyone the wrong way. That's why, like you said, like he'd be talking about nothing. You're just like, I want this dude away from me. Like I need him gone. Like security, someone just take this guy away. Like he hasn't done anything wrong, but I feel like something will happen if he's near me for longer than 30 more seconds. And he lost a lot of weight. He got the whole sunken eye thing going, the slick back hair. He just, his mannerisms, everything about this Jake Gyllenhaal puts on, hands down one of his best performances. Like I said, in The Guilty, like I said, I keep bringing up The Guilty because I think other people need to see this film. Like it's an entirely different performance by all means, but he gives that kind of performance in The Guilty, but it's a different kind. He's not the sociopathic, pathic character like Lewis Bloom, but in this film, it is Christian Bale as Patrick Bateman, except he's not a serial killer. But I wouldn't be surprised if this film kept going that he wouldn't eventually go that route.
He would absolutely start killing people just to make videos that he could sell. Yeah,
he effectively kills somebody for the shot, and he's staging people so that way they can get killed. Like, Bill Paxton, he cuts his brake line. So, what's to say that he wouldn't have eventually turned into a serial killer? And here's Rene Russo constantly airing basically a serial killer stuff. Like, I almost kind of wish there was a sequel where we got to see that, but it's almost more terrifying knowing that he now has like employees under him that are going
like a whole business going at the end.
Yeah. And that's the masterfulness of this film. That is why it's so flippin' amazing, because you have this character that you're expecting him to get his comeuppance and to be caught and stuff like that. And no, evil triumphs at the end of this film. He just keeps going on doing his thing, and the movie ends. And I love that they kind of left the credits rolling, just looking into the moon and not fading to black, just letting you live in that movie. Like at the end of it, just going, I feel wrong after watching this film, but in a phenomenal way. And Nightcatcher is one of those films. I think anyone who's actually like, what's that? I said Nightcatcher. Yeah, I said Nightcatcher. Because we talked about Foxcatcher, so I got screwed up, right? Nightcrawler is one of those films that I feel like anyone who's watched it, they'll either go, it's like us, we're saying it's fantastic, or I don't like that movie because of how it made me feel. But there's so many people, because it's like it was an indie film and stuff like that. I think more or less people have seen snippets of Gyllenhaal in the film, and that's all they've seen. Or they were like us, who they've actually seen the whole film. And this is one of those films that deserves to be watched, not just for the phenomenal performance of Jake Gyllenhaal, but for the whole movie in its own right. Because Rene Russo, Riz Ahmed, the director, the cinematographer, the camera people, the way they shot the high-speed chase, and then the third act, everything is just so well done. And I feel like this movie just does not get the credit it deserves at all. There's so many movies out there that are getting, millions upon millions of dollars and Oscar nominations for like the fucking Suicide Squad, not the one that came out this year, but a couple years ago. And then here's Nightcrawler just completely being ignored. And it's a crime that Jake Gyllenhaal, as well as everyone else in this film, just did not get recognized at all for this movie, because this movie is fantastic.
Completely agree.
What's that?
Yes, I completely agree.
Oh yeah. It's
not free anywhere right now.
It's not free anywhere right now? Okay. But it's definitely worth a rental. If you guys have not seen Nightcrawler, go out of your way to check out this film. It is Jake Gyllenhaal's best by a long shot. And if you guys are a fan of Jake Gyllenhaal and you have not seen Nightcrawler, then you're not a Jake Gyllenhaal fan, because this is hands down his best film. But yeah, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you guys did, go and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos pop up on the Movie Crusaders. And of course, don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next, I got my reviews for The Last Duel and Dune out, so be able to check those out. Brian, real quick, Last Duel and Dune.
Last Duel, very good. Got a couple problems, but the performances especially are great. Dune is, like many people said, it's a lot like Lord of the Rings. It's obviously part of a bigger story, but as a single movie, it's a little unsatisfying for me. But it looks good.
Yep, and if you want to see my review or my thoughts on it, click on my reviews. They're right there. You can watch them. Coming out this week, we've got Antlers, which I can't say if I'm going to see that this weekend or not, but if I do, there will definitely be a review out for it. Army of Thieves, the prequel to Army of the Dead, is out on Netflix, so there may be a review out for that. But we are definitely going to have a review for Brian and I's one of our most anticipated films of 2021 and 2020. The Last Night in Soho comes out, and we have been salivating, waiting for this film to come out. We will definitely be having a review for that, so be on the lookout for that. Next week, we've got The Eternals. A lot of word of mouth coming out about that film already, because of sneak peeks and all that kind of stuff. The Netflix film The Harder They Fall comes out. I'll probably have a review for that. Kristen Stewart's Spencer, where she plays Princess Di, but literally looks like Kate McKinnon. That'll be out. She watched the trailer and tell me she doesn't look like Kate McKinnon, everybody. And then the Netflix Christmas rom-com film Love Hard will also be out. We'll probably have reviews for Eternals, The Harder They Fall, and maybe Love Hard. Spencer, I don't know if I'm going to see that anytime soon. So don't be waiting for a review for that.
I'm sure I'll see it at some point, but
I'll probably catch it during Oscar season because
Right.
you know it'll probably be one of those Oscar ones. I'm just not going to watch it right away.
Right.
But next week, Brian and I will be back again for another episode of the Weekend Crusaders where we talk about 5 movies that came out during that weekend in movie history. We've got Brian's pick, which is a film that I've never seen, so I really don't know how to explain it.
Riz Ahmed Returns. Just say that.
Yes, he is. What is it? Is it a comedy, drama?
Oh, it's a comedy.
So it's comedy. Okay. We've got my pick, which is one of my favorite sci-fi films of all time. We've got a stinker of epic proportions. It is so god-awful bad.
But by one of the most successful directors of all time.
Exactly. Like when you hear this director's name, you think of all these films, and then there's this one. And you go, bullshit, he didn't make this. Like, yeah, he totally did. He totally made it. And we're going to be talking about that next week. We've got a 90s, early 90s action film that I watched way too much as a kid. And then we've got a 2000s comedy that is way better than it has any right to be, but I enjoy it quite a bit. So figure out what those films are, and we will be back next week to talk about them. My name is Sean Waskrug. That is Brian Michaels. We are the Weekend Crusaders, and until next time, in case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.